Alright, here's one we have some requests for. We're going to do an artisanal pizza on the Char-Griller Wood Pro pellet cooker. Here's your ingredients and your instructions for making our pizza dough. You can follow along with this. If you need to, just go ahead and pause the video and write the instructions and that down. Want to make sure that our water is between 100 and 110 degrees for our yeast. Just put your thermometer under your faucet. With that, we're going to put a packet of yeast that's 2 1/4 teaspoons into a bowl. We're going to put in our 1 1/2 cups of warm water, and then we're going to add in a teaspoon of sugar to give that yeast something to feed on. Okay, it's been a while. Our yeast is activated, got a nice cake there. We're going to go ahead and put our 3 1/2 cups of bread flour into a mixer bowl. We're going to add in 2 teaspoons of kosher salt. We're going to mix that up. Now we want to go ahead and add in our yeast with our water. And we're going to put a couple of tablespoons of olive oil in there as well. Okay, we've mixed that until we've cleaned the bowl. We're going to take that ball of dough out of that mixer. We're going to put it on a board. Got a little bit of board flour on there. Make sure it doesn't stick. And we're just going to knead this until we get it into a nice smooth ball. With that done, we're going to put a couple of teaspoons of olive oil into a large bowl. Going to go ahead and rub that around so that the sides of the bowl are covered. The idea is so that the dough doesn't stick to the bowl. Then we're going to go ahead and plunk our dough in there and cover that up with a damp cloth. Put that in a warm place and let it rise to twice its size. Now here's the ingredients for our sauce. While our dough is rising, we're going to work on our sauce. We've got some olive oil in our pan. We're going to go ahead and we're going to put in our medium onion. We've minced this really fine. I used a Vidalia chopper for this just to get it really fine. It's like little 1/8-inch squares. Works great, especially if you're teaching young people how to cook and you don't want to give them a knife. Now we're going to take our garlic. We're going to mince that up. We got 5 cloves here. We want to chop it really fine. Put that in with our onions. Just going to cook this until it's translucent. Now we're going to add in 8 ounces of tomato sauce. We're going to put a 1/2 cup of red wine into this. You can use a cheap Merlot if you want, or you can use an expensive Chianti. It's up to you. Now we're also going to add 6 ounces of tomato paste. We're going to put in a 1/2 teaspoon of sugar, a 1/2 teaspoon of dried oregano, and a 1/4 teaspoon of red pepper flakes. We're going to mix that all up, put it on the back burner, and just let it simmer to a nice consistency. Let's turn to our pellet grill. We want to turn this all the way up to high. We want to get it as hot as we can. We put our pizza stone in there while it's still cold because we want it to come up to temperature with the stove. Our dough is risen. We're going to go ahead and take care of this. We're going to put it out on our chopping board. We don't want to knead this a second time. What we do want to do is to go ahead and punch it down, get some of the air out of it, put it into a nice smooth ball, and then we're going to go ahead and cut this in half. Now with that cut in half, we're going to go ahead and form this into 2 nice round balls. We're only going to use one right now. We can put the other one in the fridge and we can hold that in a Ziploc bag, keep it nice and moist. Now let's move on to our toppings. Here's a tip for your tomatoes. If you want to put tomato slices on top of your pizza, put salt and pepper on them prior to putting them on the pizza. That way you don't season the whole pizza, just the tomato slices. Make them taste better. Now we've got all our toppings out here. We've got some pepperoni, we've got some chiffonade of basil, some whole basil leaves, some Italian mild sausage, and some good mozzarella cheese. You want to set all these out if you're going to have a pizza party so that your guests can put whatever they want onto their pizza. We've also got some diced up black olives. Right, let's move on to our dough here. we've got our ball of dough. We need to roll this out to make it into a pizza shape. Now, if you want to try and stretch this out and make it perfectly round, or if you want to try to get it as thin as you can and toss it up in the air and catch all the fruit flies and do whatever you want, go right ahead. I choose the simple way. I spread this out as much as I can into a circle, put some flour down on my board, lay my dough down on top of that, and I get out the good old wooden rolling pin. Absolutely nothing in the world wrong with rolling this dough out nice and thin so we can get a nice crisp crust. Okay? You try to pull this out, you're going to end up with thin spots in it, you're going to break through it, you're going to do all kind of stuff. Unless you're a professional pizza maker, you're really probably not going to get this right. Just go ahead, feel free to try if you want. Personally, to me, this is just a lot easier. Got that out the size and the thickness that I want it. I know that's going to give me a nice crisp crust. That's what I'm looking for. The reason we use bread flour in this recipe is bread flour will give you a crisper crust than a general purpose flour will. If you want a chewy crust, use general purpose flour. Now we're going to move on to our sauce. About a ladle and a half of sauce on this. That ought to be plenty. You should have enough sauce to make 2 pizzas and enough dough to make 2 pizzas with this recipe. Just going to take the back of that ladle. We're going to spread that sauce around. Bring it out to the edges. Don't take it all the way out to the edge because you want your edges to rise a little bit. With that done, I've got some chopped black olives here. I'm going to sprinkle those over this. I happen to like black olives. If you don't like them, don't use them. Entirely up to you. Now I've also browned about a pound of mild Italian sausage. Make sure you brown it when you cook it. It has to be fully cooked before it goes onto this pizza. It will not cook on the pizza. So make sure you brown this. We don't want anybody getting sick. Next up is our pepperoni. We got some nice thin pepperoni slices here, and we're just basically going to cover our entire pizza with these. These are very thin slices. You don't want anything on here that's super thick. Our tomatoes, our cheese, our pepperoni, we want it all sliced relatively thin. That way when you use a pizza cutter to cut this pizza, you won't have any difficulty. If you cut anything too thick, you have risk a chance of it A, not cooking all the way, and B, not being able to slice your pizza. Got our pepperoni on. We're going to go ahead, put our mozzarella on. Now we've sliced this about 1/8 of an inch thick. We don't want it any thicker than that. We want it to melt nice. Just going to put these slices on here. Try and get as good a coverage as you can. Now we've got a chiffonade of basil. What that means is just roll all the leaves up together and cut them really thin. With that sprinkled on there, we're going to go ahead and put our tomatoes on. Now if you ever wonder what to do with the little tiny basil leaves when you buy a pack of fresh basil, just go ahead and put a basil leaf on top of each slice of tomato. Kind of nice, and it actually tastes really good when you bite into that tomato. Okay, our pizza's ready. I'm going to slide this onto our big old pizza spatula here, and we're going to take it out to our Wood Pro stove. We've got some semolina on our stone. It's up to temperature. We're good to go. 20 minutes later, there's our pizza. Got a nice golden crust. Our cheese is melted. Everything's cooked beautifully. Going to go ahead, run our pizza cutter across that. You'll find you get a nice crunch from that crust if you follow this recipe. Got a nice glass of Chianti there and a beautiful slice of pizza. Enjoy.